Hi there, I'm Mike Austin, this is Bruce Goodlad, and we're the owners of Avalanche Geeks and Avalanche Education Company. We're based out here in the Alps underneath Mont Blanc. And we're just going to have a look today to see what Bruce is carrying in his rucksack for, I guess, an average ski touring day. Yeah, Bruce?
Yep, hi folks. As Mike said, we live out here in the Alps most of the year. I'm an international mountain guide, so I travel all around the world skiing and climbing with my guests. So here I've got a pack that I pretty much carry for just about all of the winter. This is not an airbag pack. I have an airbag pack as well that I'll use for some of the year, and we'll talk about that in another video. But this is it's a Nirvana 35, I think it is, yeah, 35. And it's big enough to use for pretty much any ski mountaineering objective. I can get ropes in here, ice axes, crampons, but it's not so big that on a day-to-day ski day from a lift or a short ski tour, it doesn't feel too big or bulky. Works really nicely for me. It's got pockets outside for my skins, it's got a pocket outside for my goggles, it's got a really nice, I can carry skis on the side, I can carry skis diagonally using here. If I was a snowboarder, I can flip that out and use it for carrying a snowboard as well. And it's also got a really nice feature on the back here. It's got a sort of clamshell access where I can get into the back of the pack as well, so I can get to things at the bottom pretty easily without actually having to unpack.
For some reason that feels way more useful. That clamshell feels much more useful ski mountaineering than say regular mountaineering or rock climbing. I'm kind of in that clam. That's my kind of go-to get into my bag in the winter time, is the clamshell. It works really good.
Works really nicely. The other thing that's really nice is if you've got skis on the side of your pack, it's really awkward to get into the pack. You know, if you're actually mountaineering, where I can just unzip and get to anything I want that way, so I'm not kind of really fighting the rucksack to get the most out of it. It's also got a nice little pocket on one of the side of the waist belt. We've got a few things in there, but I'll show you that in a minute. So we could have a dive in and see what's there.
Let's have a look and see what's inside.
So on a day-to-day basis, I like to pack my sack and pretty much leave it for most of the season. I'll take stuff in and out depending on what I'm doing for the day. But for example, I really like just to leave my transceiver in my rucksack. You know, when I put it on in the morning, I take it out of my rucksack, put it on. When I finish my day, I take it off, switch it off, and put it back in my rucksack so I don't forget it. So that just tends to live in there for the season for me. And if we go, while we're on the outside of the pack, I've got this pocket here, I've got my skins in there.
So they're really quick and easy to get to for transitions. You're not having to even open the clamshell, you just straight in and out, and that because that's the most regular thing that's going on and off, right?
Absolutely. Using the skins, maybe depending on where we are, we might use them, change them 2-3 times a day quite easily. And it means as well, if they're a bit snowy, try and keep them as dry as possible, but you're not introducing snow into the pack if they're on the outside there. And sometimes you can't avoid that. And I take my skins every day I go skiing. If I'm going, maybe the only time maybe I wouldn't if I was going out with the kids, but other than that, it means if I'm change the plan, I want to go for a short tour, see some nice snow that I want to access, or if I've gone and skied a line and decided it either closes out or it's more avalanche prone than I thought it was, I've got options. It just keeps my options open.
Yeah, I think that's key. Like it's options, isn't it? They may, even for just like a day's on piste, you've now got options for whatever reason, right? If you need to go up for
I mean, so often in the Alps, I think we go out for a day, and you think it snowed a bit, but you're not really sure how much, and it might well be that actually to get the best skiing of the day, it might need a short skin, or you might really go, oh, that actually would give us the best skiing for today. So nice to have those options. And if we carry on the outside, there's a little bit of a kind of firm pocket here for some goggles. Just leave them in there. It's got a bit of a lining in there, which is quite nice.
What kind of lenses would you normally have in there? A dark lens or a light lens?
I've got a very light lens. These are actually these are orange, pretty good flat light, early season sort of lenses.
Yeah.
I might use something a bit darker in the main part of the season, in the sort of springtime or second half of the season, but certainly for the first part of the season, I always keep it pretty light.
Okay.
And maybe just if we get it. Usually if you're skiing with goggles, it's because the weather's bad, so nice to have that going on. So if we go into the main, let's just go one pack, one zip back for now. So
I don't know if you mentioned that. That's you're going into the rescue pouch there. Yeah. And what I like about this pack here is that even the tab on the rescue pack for the rescue pouch is is a different colour, so it's easy to see, and it demarks it from the other zips. That's cool.
Yeah, and it's nice and bright inside, so it's easy to find things. So in here I've got my probe. You can see I don't have it in a bag. It means it's really quick and easy to deploy. And that's a 2.8 metre Mammut. It's a carbon fibre probe, Mammut probe. Really nice. It's carbon, so it's quite light, but it's got quite a fat cross section, so it's easy to hold and it won't bend and deflect in hard blocky snow. It's got a really nice orange tip to it, which means that to kind of see that's coming. It's got gradations on it, so it's, you know how deep the snow is, how deep you're digging. You know, if you're doing formal snow profiles as well, that's quite handy for measuring snow. But mainly from a rescue perspective, it just means you know how deep you're going to dig. And it fits in a nice sleeve here. And next to that, shovel, Mammut shovel, alligator light. It's quite a nice size of shovel. It fits together really easily like that, and you can bring the handle out a bit longer as well. And UUIA approved shovel, so it's good solid bit of kit. Nice and balanced between weight and functionality. The blade I think is a really nice size for digging, but not too big, so you can dig pretty quickly. Yeah, and it all folds up really nicely inside my pack. Just put that there. I'll just shut that for now. So if you go into the main body of the pack, I actually always carry a spare pair of sunglasses, and I usually make sure they've got orange lenses. Just means that they're really good skiing in flat light, or especially skinning in flat light when I don't necessarily want to have a pair of goggles on. And I actually have a much darker lens as well, so that's a spare pair of sunglasses.
So you got loads of eyewear options, right? So that you're going with. So they're your only glasses, or you got another pair of glasses as well? Normally,
I generally have glasses I've got on. These are the Jobo with a chameleon lens, so they go really dark. I've got quite light sensitive eyes, so these go right down to a Cat 4, and then I tend to carry these with an orange lens. I just hate skinning in goggles, and I really find in flat light having an orange lens just makes it that much easier to read the terrain. And I suppose because my eyes are quite light sensitive, I get really paranoid about losing or breaking a pair of glasses. So.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. So many, that's so important.
Yeah.
But as you say, it helps you pick up terrain features, maybe lines of crevasses.
Absolutely, I think when that poor weather terrain choice on a small level, like you say, you can see the shadow in a crevasse. You can just choose your skinning line much better. I think it's just much easier to make those good choices if I had an orange lens in my glasses as opposed to just pushing on with a dark lens, and it just makes it easier for me. And then next to it, I've got a woolly hat, pair of gloves. Again, very situational dependent. If it's the spring, I'd have a much lighter glove. Same with the hat. I'll choose stuff that's appropriate to the weather at that time of year. And I double that up with a buff or whatever you want to call it, a snood. And again, that can be either for a face mask, it can be for a hat or a headband or whatever. And just a nice versatile bit of kit. Then we dive down a bit. Got a little bit of food and a drink. And again, early part of the season, pretty much always make that a thermos flask rather than a water bottle. It's just nice to have a warm drink. And if I'm going out pretty much any day, I'll take a kind of half-litre flask with me, just with a bit of warm juice or tea or whatever in it. And just on a cold, wild day, it's really nice just to have something warm with me.
And that's not that much bigger than a 1 litre water bottle anyway.
No, it's not super big, but and usually finding the cold conditions, you tend not to drink as much anyway on the hill, so I think a half-litre thermos is fine for me.
So in the springtime when it's a bit hotter, maybe you'd swap that out for like a 1 litre water bottle maybe?
Yeah, quite often. Or the other thing I quite often do in the spring is I'll still carry this, but add a 1 litre flexible water bottle in it.
Okay.
So it doesn't take up too much room in my pack, because once you drunk the water, it flexes, so it just means you stuff it in the corner. And just have
one of these kind of bladdery types,
the soft
bladdery ones.
Yeah, that sort of style.
Now. Yeah,
that kind of style seems to work really well. You can always, if you've got a hot drink and it's warm, you can always stick snow in it as well to get a bit moisture out, which yeah. The other thing I find, it's a bit nerdy, but I found that actually cheap flasks are just cheap flasks. They just don't keep your drink warm.
Yeah.
Whereas actually having a good quality flask just keeps your tea that much warmer. So when
it's one of those things you get what you pay for, is it, a flask?
Absolutely,
right.
in my experience.
So which one is that?
That's actually thermos.
That's the thermos flask, right?
That's actually thermos. But I mean, Primus and quite a few other companies make good ones, but worth spending a little bit of money on. Next thing down, we've got a hard shell jacket. Hard shell. I mean, this is early season skiing. We're thinking about now. Good pockets for my navigation tools.
Yeah, I love a chest pocket. Those Napoleon pockets there, they're kind of key really for navigational kit, or just anything anything you want to get to quickly. That's and repeatedly.
Yeah, anything you really need, and they as well. They're nicely above the line of a harness if I'm skiing with a harness or a rucksack waist belt on, and it's got a good hood as well. So that's pretty nice. And these things are incredibly light now compared to what they used to be like.
So that's not like a bomber hard shell, right? Because you've got a good soft shell, or what's your thinking about that? Like I'll like the hard shell I get is like some really super lightweight thing that I just shove at the bottom of the pack and forget about. It's not some really expensive.
So this is relatively robust actually. This is GoPro shell. So so it is quite heavy duty. But this is what I'd use at the early part of the season when we're skiing in cold weather, windy weather, December, January sort of skiing. And then as the season moves down into warmer conditions, I definitely make a transition when I'm skiing much more soft shell and having a light hard shell that will be living in the bottom of the rucksack.
So in that circumstance in the springtime, you're not actually planning on using that hard shell, so that's why you go super lightweight with that, and it's just an emergency piece at the bottom, whereas this one is probably going to get used early season.
Yeah, I think about the only time I probably use a full-on hard shell in the spring is somewhere like in the Arctic Norway when you actually end up with it raining. Yeah. And you're like, well, we all want to go out skiing for the day and it might rain, so we just take, my head out something that's actually a bit more waterproof. But generally, this will be sort of December, January, and then unless I'm somewhere really cold and really with dodgy weather forecast, I'd go full light. Yeah, definitely prefer the soft shell. Oh, give them an option.
Yeah, it's just for me, soft shell feels kind of warmer anyway.
It's
less kind of being in a crisp bag.
Yeah, definitely. Then I've got down layer, duvet layer. Again, this is a reasonably warm down jacket. Yep, so this is my down jacket that sort of lives in my pack probably for most of the season, to be honest. This is it's sized so it will easily go on top of everything. I don't want to be taking off anything to add my layers of insulation.
So do you buy that deliberately slightly larger?
Yeah, it is a bit larger. So when I decided on the size, I actually had everything else on and then sized it to just easily fit on top of everything. The hood will go over a helmet. It's a hydrophobic down, so it's really easy to look after.
What do you mean by hydrophobic down? What's that?
So the down is treated so it doesn't absorb water anywhere near as quickly.
But it's not synthetic. It's proper down.
It's proper down.
And so what do they do with that?
They do some weird wizardry where they coat the down, the actual feathers, with a compound that actually stops them to reduces their uptake of water.
Right. So the shell's not only waterproof, but the down itself has been treated and is waterproof too.
Yeah. So I mean, it won't last in a sort of heavy, continuous rainstorm, but moving in and around snow and sleet and stuff, this will keep you warm and much longer than an average down jacket would. It's just really important to have an extra layer. Sitting around waiting for help or waiting for a rescue, you can get really cold really quickly. So just having that extra,
or even putting something like that on the casualty, right?
Absolutely, yeah, it might not be for
you. Maybe your pal's not got that kind of foresight to carry that, And so that just lives at the bottom of your pack all year round.
Stuff it in the bottom of it.
Yeah. And I guess if it's going to live in the pack all year round, then if you do buy slightly large to go over the top of everything, you're not tempted to wear it down to the pub and as a fashion piece. It just lives there. That's a technical piece, and it's just living in the pack.
Yeah, I would say that for all my kit. I generally don't try and double stuff up or go streetwear. It's my mountaineering kit. ski touring kit. It's what lives in my pack my rucksack, and then I'm only going to vary it, you know, off the shelf in my basement before I go out on that day. I'm not kind of it doesn't have multi-use throughout my average week.
So when you're throwing that pack in the back of the car at sort of 6 in the morning and you're half asleep, you know it's already packed because nothing's coming out of it, right?
Absolutely. Next lower down, I've got a few little bits of spares, and this is, I wouldn't describe this as a full-on spares kit. This is my emergency get me home. You know, if we're going on a 5-6 day ski tour, I'd augment this with lots of other bits and bobs. That I might have to cobble something together that lasts a number of days, whereas this is my kind of get me to the road, get me home. So I've got about 4 meters of cord, a couple of ski straps, bit of tape, and this sort of physio type tape, so much better than duct tape.
Okay, because you see a lot of people with duct tape around the poles or in the pack. But so what's the advantage of the physio tape?
The big problem with duct tape is when it's really cold, it goes brittle and it just doesn't stick.
So you've tried to duct tape a tail of a skin onto a ski, it's just going to crack. And
it's -20, it just won't stick. -15, which you could easily get, you know, early in the season, high up. Whereas this stuff seems to stick much better. Yeah, much better. Also, it doubles up if you're starting to blister your heel or whatever, it'll stick onto your foot really easily. So that's good for that. And then I carry along with that in my little poochie on the side here. I carry a Multitool.
Is there a particular brand of Multitool that you like? Or?
This is just a Leatherman. Wingman is a model, but it doesn't that I have any particular preference really. It's just what I've got. For me, with the Multitool, pair of pliers because things get bent and you can straighten them. A knife for cutting your saucisson, and a pair of scissors I find incredibly useful.
Okay.
Just sounds daft, but going off climbing and stuff, you forget to trim your toenails. Really silly little things like that. They can actually have a really big effect on the comfort of your day. But yeah, a pair of scissors, and making sure as well there's a screwdriver on there that actually will fit your ski bindings.
Okay.
It's pretty daft to kind of forget to turn up your ski bindings at the start of the year, you know, engage the DIN setting, and you don't actually have the right screwdriver with you.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's a good point, because some of the screws now on some of the bindings are kind of inaccessible, or they're using that hex head there. So I've had to start carrying a second kind of screwdriver specifically for that, because I just can't get the Leatherman into some of that stuff. So.
Yeah, no, it's definitely worth checking that you've got the right stuff in your team. While we're in that little pocket at the side, I just leave a bit of sun cream in there as well, and that works for lips or face. You know, early season we're not needing enough sun cream to cover the whole of my body, my arms and stuff, but certainly that's enough for my
yeah,
face.
I mean that's a good, I mean it's kind of interesting. That's a tiny little tube, but why carry like a big frigging tube around? All you're doing is covering your nose and your face, and then having such a small tube, it's always with you as well. You're not you're not getting onto the lift and then say, oh, I forgot to put sun cream on today.
Yep. And what else have we got in here? So we've got a spare pair of gloves. These are kind of lobster claw mitten gloves, which are super warm, really nice. Again, that thing about you end up on a summit, going uphill, it's quite easy to keep your hands warm because you're active. Coming downhill, your hands get much colder. So really nice to have a nice cozy pair of mitts for that. Or, you know, the weather's much colder, it's windier. Or again, if we end up in, you know, having for bed, get caught out, nice to have a decent pair of mitts. And the lobster claw, they're actually surprisingly dexterous. You know, they're not quite as warm as a full mitt, but they're pretty close. And they are actually pretty dexterous to do stuff with. So.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, mitts are massively warmer than a glove.
If it's a really cold day, I'd always just wear mitts. Just once you get your hands cold, it's really hard to warm them up. You know, it's good to start. If you can keep your hands warm, then it's easy to maintain. Whereas if you get really cold hands, it's quite hard to bring them back. So so spare pair of mitts in there. And I've got a little bit more emergency kit. I've got a first aid kit in here. We can have a look at that in a second. Then alongside that, I've got a group shelter. And I've got my ski crampons actually. If you end up on any hard snow, it can make the difference between carrying on and not carrying on, or skinning and really comfortably, or sketching about somewhere dangerous on a steep slope.
It's a really interesting point. The amount of times I've been out on a powder day and just not taken them because I don't need them, and then it's just like, man, I wish I had them. I've just stopped trying to double guess now. I just take them regardless.
I mean, I've even, you know, everybody sees the famous pictures of skiing in Japan where it's waist deep powder all the time. I've used ski crampons in Japan quite a lot because as soon as you get above the tree line, it's pretty windy and you might have some hard packed snow. So if you've got them, then you've got them. If you don't have them, you may have to turn around. And
they'll always be in your pack. You see people kind of with them clipped to the outside. Bruce, do you do that?
That's quite an interesting question. Quite often, especially springtime, I'll have a carabiner on the waist belt of my rucksack.
Yeah.
Or them clipped together like that.
Yeah.
But, if you clip them and position them right, you don't sound like a cowbell. But it just means it's really quick and easy, because it's the unwritten law of ski crampons that you always put them on far too late.
Yeah.
So you end up bouncing around on a silly place trying to put them on. Whereas if you stop early, have them accessible, it's really quick to put them on. It's really easy to take them off as well. So if you decide that you didn't need them because the snow's softer than you realised, you can just pull them out.
So if they're really handy on the outside of your pack, then you're more likely to use them before you get into some death slope, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the classic would be leaving a hut in the morning in the springtime, where you know, or there's a pretty good chance that once you get onto any sort of steeper terrain, you'll probably want them. Then it just makes it easy to make that transition.
And what about skiing down with them outside?
Just put them away. Put them inside your pack. It's really easy to either lose them, or more importantly, falling over and landing on them would be pretty serious.
Yeah.
Would be pretty unpleasant.
Yeah.
So yeah, as soon as I'm finished, ready for my descent, I like to have everything in my pack
nice and tidy,
and just ski down. It's Summit gear. I think they're made in Wales or somewhere in the UK. It's just a friend recommended it because they pack so small. But if you've not seen one of these, if you think of it like a tent fly sheet, that would be the easiest way to describe it. This one's particularly light fabric, so I would kind of think of it as a kind of almost like a one-use bit of kit. You know, if someone was really injured, we needed to get some shelter out the wind to sort things out or wait for help, we can just pull this out, we can all get inside it, and if it gets damaged, I'm not really bothered about it.
Okay.
It's not like the big old-fashioned kissus or something they were called, where they'd be planned to get inside on a Scottish hillside, a Welsh hillside, and have your lunch.
Right.
This is not that. This is an emergency bit of kit, and that's why it's so small and so lightweight.
Super lightweight, yeah. And you know, you were talking there about with your first aid kit and the down jacket with somebody getting injured. Putting somebody inside that and doing first aid in that, or just looking after a casualty in that, that's a huge difference, right?
Oh, massive. I mean, the only time so I can think of recently where I've had to use one in anger was actually in Arctic Norway, with someone broke their leg, it's a spiral tib and fib, and we got this out, we all got inside it, and we had to wait about an hour till a helicopter turned up. We were all super toasty, super relaxed. It was easy to keep the casualty motivated and kind of as cheerful as you can with a broken leg and no analgesics. But yeah, and then once the heli was coming in, we just packed it all away so it wouldn't get blown away, and yeah, really kept everyone toasty.
And a great, you know, bright orange, great thing for a helicopter looking for you as well. It's a great big orange splurge on the side of a white mountain.
Absolutely, very easy for them to find us. So yeah, no, I definitely recommend. And you can get them in all sorts of sizes.
Yeah.
So you know, if you only ski as a group of 2 or 3 regularly, you don't need anything even as big as this. So definitely recommend getting one of those. The last bit of emergency kit we've got in here is actually Garmin InReach Mini. Here we go. This works on the Iridium satellite network, so it works anywhere in the world.
Right.
And it allows you to call for help.
So how do you call for help on that, Bruce? You know, without going into too much detail.
Without actually switching it on, doing it by accident. Switch it on, it'll get signal from the Iridium network, and you can flick out this switch at the side.
Yeah.
And press for help, and it'll send a signal out. It'll be able to geolocate you, so it can send out your exact coordinates, and that'll allow you to communicate with the rescue services. And it's incredibly light. You know, it's incredibly light. It's probably lighter than a mobile phone.
Okay.
And the battery on this is pretty impressive. You know, it could be a couple of months if you're not actually using it.
And that's a standalone bit of kit, but it also Bluetooths to a smartphone, right? And you can send text messages around the world, not necessarily for emergencies, but just to stay in touch with kind of friends or loved ones.
Absolutely, it could be anything from using that sort of system. It could be anything from I'm all right, I'll be down in 2 hours, I'm late, to, you know, you're on an expedition and you're just sending messages home, updates to people, all sorts of stuff. I've got friends who use them in expeditions in the Himalaya, and they're being texted a weather forecast once a day, all sorts of things. So they can actually be pretty reliable two-way communication.
Yeah.
If I'm operating somewhere even more really remote and I want more advanced comms, I've actually got a satellite phone. But for a day-to-day kind of system, these are really
yeah. I mean, satellite phones are great, but they're heavy and they're expensive. Whereas that's, you know, you can put that in the bottom of your pack, and like a lot of that stuff you've got on there, you can just forget about it, right?
Absolutely, it's super light.
Yeah. And that's a subscription service.
Yeah, you do. There's various levels of subscription depending on the amount of service you want. But I think it's about,
I think 15 quid for the basic one. Yeah.
So, yeah.
But what's good about it is that you can that's not all year round. If you only want it for the winter, you can just cancel it for 6 months and then start up, and there's no fees for that. You can chop and change, and
it's very versatile from that perspective. No, great little bit of kit. We'll put a bladder in it or whatever in there. So I've got a map of where we're going to operate. This is one of those little mini maps of the Mont Blanc Massif, which is great. Covers most of the places I want to ski around here. It's really good. I've got a compass. Even in the days of electronic mapping, always have a compass with me. And then I've got a GPS as well, with the mapping on it. Again, it just makes life super simple if I need to use that.
And that over a phone, Bruce, or will you use the phone and that as a backup?
So
Thoughts on that?
I would say a lot of the time now I'm using digital mapping on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, some places I've actually bought a second phone, the Chinese phone called an Ula phone, which is Ula ULE phone, where I actually have all my digital mapping for Norway, Sweden, lots of other places all on that, and that works really nicely actually. It's got quite a big screen, and the battery life's actually pretty good.
And that's rated. Why that phone? Because it's rated really for cold.
It's weatherproof, and the battery lasts about 200 hours on it. 200
hours.
Yeah.
Right.
So
it's not like the iPhone, and like, you know, you start off charged and it's in an outside pocket, and half an hour later it's down to 10%.
No, it's not.
Right,
I just keep it for my navigation.
And
tools.
nothing else on there. It's not used as a phone.
I don't even have a SIM card in it.
Don't even have a SIM card.
I just use Wi-Fi to load the maps on.
I know the guys at ALE down in Antarctica are using those things for that reason, that they're just weatherproof.
Yeah, no, they're pretty robust. They're not particularly light, but they do work really well. And that's an alternative thought to the like a Garmin GPS or some other brand. I mean, the thing I think that's really interesting is that I think I'm probably moving more onto that system now because the mapping's so much cheaper. The mapping on GPS, I've got all the maps for around here on my GPS, so it's easy to use. But actually, the mapping for lots of places is actually pretty expensive to get on a GPS unit.
On a SIM card, on the SIM cards.
Whereas actually buying the mapping,
the SD cards rather. Yeah.
Whereas buying the mapping for a phone is actually relatively inexpensive.
Yeah. That said, you know, I think there's still life in some of these GPS devices, in so much as you've got changeable batteries there. So if you're out, you know, somewhere in Alaska for a week or 2 weeks, you just run them on lithium batteries, and then, you know, you're not having to try and trickle charge of a solar panel. Super robust. And then just actually, I find if I have to navigate in a whiteout, I find them much more intuitive than trying to do that on the phone. I know the phone interfaces are great for that.
I think you're right. From a mapping perspective and actually looking at a map, that mapping on the phone is actually really, really good.
Brighter screen, bigger screen.
But actually following a compass arrow to a waypoint is actually much easier.
Much easier on the Garmin.
I'm sure they'll all mesh at some point.
At some point, So we're in this kind of interval period of overlapping technologies at the moment, right?
I think the other thing with I think that over time that the software on the phone or the apps available for a phone will catch up. And the beauty is that they're relatively inexpensive to load on and update.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, that unit's a few years old now, and it'd be quite a significant expenditure to kind of upgrade it. So yeah, but it works pretty well for now.
Cool. And so any final thoughts on kit, Bruce?
I mean, this, I suppose that sitting looking at the pile here on the
It's
floor,
a lot
it looks like a lot of kit.
My thought is there's a lot of kit.
It looks like a lot of kit, and I suppose the reason it's ended up with the pile we've got is that you sort of start off your career and you bring everything, and then you throw stuff out over the following next few years, and then all of a sudden things happen and you realise that actually the thing you needed, whether it be the extra bandage in your first aid kit, the ski strap, the extra down jacket, whatever it happens to be, you really wish you had it with you, so you start adding stuff back in.
Yeah.
And I think after 20 years as a guide, and 30 or plus years of mountaineering and skiing, I'm not carrying anything here that I haven't used on a regular basis. I would say the only things that probably don't get used regularly in my first aid kit.
Yeah.
And that's hopefully, fingers crossed, carries on like that. Everything else that's in this stack gets used at some point most weeks. So and as I said, I will vary it through the season. I'll take
certain things out. It depends what kind of tour you're doing. If you're just going off the top of a lift for a couple of laps, is a very different thing to going up to the top of the midi, right? And then going up something steep.
Yeah, exactly. The difference in like skiing here, where we live in Saint-Gervais, skiing through grassy meadows versus getting off the Kleine Matterhorn in December where it's -27, and skiing on a glacier is a totally different thing. But I'll still start with the same core kit. I might. Yeah.
So that pack will be packed like that in your garage, and the night before, stuff will come out onto the floor of the garage. You'll go with it, come back home, dry stuff out, and shove everything back into that pack.
Yeah. So I might have a bigger down jacket hanging on the peg. Yeah. If it's December and it's really cold, I might swap that out. But other than that, it's pretty similar.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks very much, Bruce.
Thanks.
That's it's always interesting seeing what everybody else carries, isn't it? It's kind of cool.
Just
different ideas.
Brilliant.
All right. Brilliant. Thanks.
Thanks for listening.